President Donald Trump, meanwhile, began his first full week in the White House by sitting down with a group of business executives. The president said that his administration, in part, would be cutting regulations and taxes massively. He also repeated his pledge to implement a border tax for U.S. companies which move their manufacturing out of the U.S.
To know each other very well. We'll have these meetings whenever you need them, actually, but I would say every quarter, perhaps. You could say monthly, but then all of a sudden monthly becomes repetitive, as we know. It sounds good, but then you have to do it, and it's like gets a little repetitive. But I would say probably on a quarterly basis. You are great people. You've done an amazing job, and the biggest in the world. And this is a worldwide meeting. And what we want to do is bring manufacturing back to our country. Now, what we're doing is we are going to be cutting taxes massively for both the middle class and for companies, and that's massively. We're trying to get it down to anywhere from 15 to 20%, and it's now 35%, but it's probably more 38% than it is 35, wouldn't you say? That's a big thing. A bigger thing, and that surprised me, is the fact that we're going to be cutting regulation massively. Now, we're going to have regulation, and it'll be just as strong and just as good and just as protective of the people as the regulation we have right now. The problem with the regulation that we have right now is that you can't do anything. I have people that tell me they have more people working on regulations than they have doing product, and it's out of control.
Again, that was Donald Trump earlier with some of the business leaders who you now see on your screen, in fact, as they are meeting with the assembled press following that meeting. Let's take a look and listen.
Across the border and products backed in, there is going to be a heavy tax. One, do you take him at his word for that? Do you believe that could be a possibility? And then two, on the corporate tax side today, he seemed to move the goalposts a little bit from 15 to 20%. Is that an environment that you would still be happy with?
Well, I can't speak for every company around us other than we did talk about the border tax quite a bit, and we did talk about the sorts of industries that might be helped or hurt by that. Look, I would take the president at his word here. He's not going to do anything to harm competitiveness. He's going to actually make us all more competitive, recognizing there's a transition here in terms of you can't get things done overnight. Maybe Mark Fields, you would like to add some comments? Did Mark disappear on me? Would you like to add some comments of the auto industry in particular?
No,
the mic.
Yeah, thank you. Mark Fields, Ford Motor Company. I think, walking out of the meeting today, I know I come out with a lot of confidence that the president is very, very serious on making sure that the United States economy is going to be strong, and they have policies, tax, regulatory, or trade to drive that. And I think that encourages all of us as CEOs as we make decisions going forward. So it was a very, very positive meeting. And I think very positive meeting for the United States of America and manufacturing in general.
It is striking.
Folks, we're all set here.
I think it's
Thank you. Thank you.
Again, we did see some of the assembled business leaders there. The first man speaking was Andrew Laveris, the CEO of Dow Chemical. He was followed, as you heard, by Mark Fields, the CEO of the Ford Motor Company. To discuss all of this, we're now joined by Politico reporter Kevin Robillard, who joins us from the Politico newsroom there in Arlington, Virginia. And Kevin, first, again, as we saw the optics here of this first meeting between the president and leaders of business, he chose to make jobs and manufacturing and the return of said manufacturing jobs to the U.S. Priority one here on the first full day of the first full week of his administration. Our Major Garrett earlier remarked on the choreography of what we saw here. What'd you make of it?
Yeah, I think it was very important for him to send a message to big business. That is one wing of the Republican Party that's always been somewhat skeptical of Trump. Trump liked to portray himself as sort of one of these big businessmen, but they never really saw him as part of the club. Real estate developers are sort of off in their own little world as compared to the rest of the business community. And look, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, which is sort of the major voice for big business in Washington, has always been really skeptical of Trump. Throughout the campaign, they were really worried that he was going to hurt Republican hopes of keeping the Senate and hurt Republicans down ballot. That obviously didn't come to pass, but they're also very afraid of some of Trump's policies. These people were very strong supporters of the Trans-Pacific Partnership and of free trade in general. And really, this is a group that he has some disagreements with, particularly over that proposed border tax. and we'll have to see how that gets implemented, because this is easily a group that could turn on Trump at a certain point, although right now they seem to be playing ball.
Right now, however, especially as it concerns free trade, he actually said in that meeting, and I want to quote, "Some people say that's not free trade regarding the border tax, but we don't have free trade now," end quote. If nothing else, how does this unfold in Congress?
Yeah, look, the House Republican majority clearly strongly supports free trade. In the Senate, that might even be more the case. I think pretty much every Republican senator supports free trade, where there are sort of isolated House Republicans who do not. And so really pulling out of the TPP is really one of the, and that's something Trump did this morning formally, is really a big deal in terms of just breaking from being a traditional Republican president, which is also something we saw in his inaugural speech. That was a nationalist speech, not a conservative one. So really what Trump tries to do in terms of perhaps implementing tariffs or implementing this border tax, that's really a place where he could end up fighting with his own party in Congress. But we really have to see how this all gets implemented first. Trump, right now is very vague. It's very hard to figure out what he means a lot of the time. Just that sentence, "We don't have free trade right now." Well, the U.S. has been in a free trade regime for 30 years. It's unclear as what he could possibly really mean by that. So, there's still a lot up in the air.